Welcome to Simplifying Live once again with me, Shashank. I mean, I'm honored to be here in the company of Ed Sims, the CEO of WestJet. Ed, welcome
Thank
to
you.
the museum.
It is a museum. It's a part museum, part shrine
Yeah,
to the industry.
yeah, exactly. I've really spent a lot of time putting a lot of collectibles together on aviation. But I'm so glad that you could join and take time out of your busy schedule.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, everyone knows in the industry at least what WestJet is going through. You've totally become an adult. Now you're 22, right? You're
You talking to
complete.
me personally?
And now WestJet is
Okay.
22. WestJet is 22, and the company decided to install you to take it into adulthood. You've been going through some significant changes in the last 1 year. 787s, Maxes, Delta partnership, Swoop. How do you cope with this change? Well, at least start to begin with just explaining what's happening.
Yeah, well, for those who know a little bit about my background, I've come from network carriers. So I've come from carriers that are used to operating in the complexity of hub models, networks, ultra long haul, premium offerings, and a full suite of offerings. So I guess I've come in to this adolescent low cost carrier that's been growing like crazy. And every time it's seen a new route, it's gone into the new route, it's been profitable, it's made money, but it's ended up bumping up against the constraints of how fast you can actually grow the Canadian market. And we have to remind ourselves always, we're here in a country of 35 million people, 80% of whom live along the border with the US. There are still 5 million Canadians traveling across that border to go and travel with low cost carriers. So sooner or later, and it's happened probably sooner than we all thought, we ended up running out of the domestic market, either that we could carry intra Canada or even transborder and onto the winter sun destinations. So now is the time for this adolescent to dust ourselves off, loosen the apron strings, if you like, and move into the world of fully wide body, premium, and international offerings. So, in about 63 days' time and counting, we're going to take delivery of the first 787. And that is going to be a huge rite of passage for the whole organization.
Yeah.
This will be us for the first time serving a fully lie flat business class bed, a full premium economy, and operating daily services to London and 4 times a week to Paris, 3 times a week to Dublin. It's pretty exciting.
Oh, that is indeed very exciting. Possibly the most exciting time in the history of the company. But one of the things, for example, in WestJet has been the egalitarian nature of the product and service, and those were sort of the values of the companies that are now going to change. You're going to have a business class as opposed to everyone being in economy class. You're going from the Southwest model to a full service carrier model. What's the biggest challenge in this transition?
Well, it's retaining what we had while we move into the future. It's almost honouring the past while we embrace the great things that we've got ahead. I think part of WestJet's role, we talk about it enriching the world of everyone who comes into our world, but also it's about humanising air travel. The challenge as we look around these fabulous models and the fabulous tributes that you've got here to the wonderful industry that we found ourselves in, is to ensure that we don't become a commodity, that we don't become the Greyhound bus of the next generation. People need to remember the romance and the excitement of travel. It's harder when people are traveling back and forth, Calgary, Toronto, Vancouver, Boston, whatever commute people have got on a week-to-week basis, that we take time to remember this miracle of getting skybound
together.
This whole principle of reverse thrust that takes us up to 35,000 feet is a miracle every time it happens. Just at WestJet, we operate 740 flights a day. We're carrying between 60 to 70,000 guests every single day. We've got to remind ourselves that a proportion of those guests, whether they're traveling from Lethbridge to Calgary or Calgary to Dublin, are doing it for the first time. And we've got to take time to humanize that travel, to help people through these busy environments of airports that can be very impersonal, and to make sure that we either share a joke or share our personality on board. And whether you're sitting in business class or whether you're sitting in the back row of economy, everybody wants to feel something memorable about that flight. And 9 times out of 10, that's something memorable is going to be the interaction with the WestJet.
Oh yes, I mean I have a very recent one. I flew to Orlando just 2 weeks ago on WestJet, and it was a 6 a.m. flight, and for some reason the boarding stopped. And Christy, who was at the gate, she said, "Hey, you know what? The boarding stopped. We got to adjust the gate." And we're like, "Oh, come on, 6 a.m. Cranky kids. They want to get to Disneyland." And there was a sigh. And then she says, "Oh, and look, it just started snowing." And everyone's expecting, "Oh no, there's going to be a delay." It was the first snow in Toronto.
Yeah.
And she says, "But guess what? You're all going to the sun destination. There'll be no snow there." And everyone just had a nice laugh. And people lighten up. I don't think this was part of a standard operating procedure for Christie. This wasn't necessarily a script that she was reading, but she was just being herself.
Yeah.
The question is though, as you scale and grow bigger, how do you scale this?
Yeah, that's a great question. Safety briefings in Canada, you have to be delivered first in English, then in French. Your safety briefing starts spilling out to about 7 minutes. So by the time you're pushing back, you're almost airborne by the time you finish those safety briefings. So I think we've rightly said that under the guidelines laid down by Transport Canada, you keep the safety briefing quite formal, but use every other opportunity to inject personality and humour for the Christies of this world. I saw the story that you posted on LinkedIn. It's a wonderful story, great tribute to Christy. I think, unfortunately, Christy, I spelled your name wrong on LinkedIn, but notwithstanding that, I'm very, very proud to think of you as a colleague, and that's exactly the sort of response we want, because things do go wrong. Canada, wow, it's pretty tough. Weather, it's tough terrain, it's a tough climate to be operating in. We know that, come winter on the East Coast and out in Alberta, there are going to be weather-related delays, and it's how we respond and the humanity that we put into that response. I love personally seeing the skipper of the aircraft come out and make his or her PA by standing in the cabin. And so again, you've got
is that still done?
Oh, it's not done every time, but I love it when it is done. And I love, if I'm sat down in 23 Delta, just hearing the reaction from the other guests sitting around me. And every flight I take, I get up and do my own PA, and then I get involved in service and end up collecting garbage. And every single time we do it, or one of the executive team do it, the reaction it gets from the guests around us, people getting their iPads out and filming it like it's the first time, or I get the comment every time, glad you found your true role in life collecting garbage. And I have to smile like it's the first time I've heard that joke every time. But it's about making that individual trip as memorable experience as we possibly can.
Now, what's fascinating to me is I don't think there are many CEOs, airline CEOs in this world who would travel 23B, let alone clean the plane after it lands. I mean, there's Tony Fernandez and there are a few others. But this is the part that I find it's easier for a smaller carrier with 700 flights than someone who has, let's say, 1,700 flights. In 5 years, you might, right? What part do you scale and how do you scale? Do you extend the training for the staff? Do you clean some flights, don't clean some flights? How do you actually scale this thing that makes WestJet so unique?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I think it's more a philosophy than it is a logistics issue. We started grooming our own aircraft to reduce turnaround time. We've estimated every minute of turnaround on an aircraft is worth about $1,000. So when you're doing it,
every minute is $1,000.
Every single minute is $1,000. The combination of cost and revenue of getting the aircraft back up into the air. So you take a minute off every single flight. That's $750,000 immediately. That's pretty valuable revenue you wouldn't get otherwise. But the really important thing is the philosophy sitting behind it. It's actually nothing to do with the scale of logistics. It's simply saying that when I groom with our flight attendants and with our flight deck who come back from the flight deck to come and groom the aircraft, we're all doing exactly the same job. We're all equal on board that aircraft. In fact, yesterday I got up to my PA and the flight attendant said, "Would you mind waiting until we're airborne because we're on quite a tight turnaround?" That's her call. It's her flight, not my flight. So when I'm on board, like everybody else, there's a pilot in command and there's a lead flight attendant.
You know who's in charge.
And when we come to groom, whether there's WestJetters going off on their own vacation, whether they're on duty travel, we're all grooming together. We're all absolutely equal. Sometimes, we all find the same things in the seat pockets that we wish we hadn't found. But that's also part of the job as well.
Right.
So I think long may that philosophy continue that we're
Mhm.
all absolutely equal on board the aircraft.
Yeah, and I think that's a very humbling experience for everyone to do the same thing together, right? As you scale, you said earlier, you want to keep some parts and you want to change some parts. How do you instill change in an organization that's been so closely tied together and has operated pretty much in a similar fashion for the last 20 years?
Yeah, I've been asked a number of times in my career, when are you going to stop changing? Because you seem to be constantly changing service flows or changing seating arrangements, changing IFE programming. And my answer's always been the same. I'll change when our guests stop asking for change.
Mm-hmm.
And I often use the parallel of mobile phones. Since when did you or I start saying to Apple, will you stop upgrading your phone or will you stop issuing new apps? Because, like me, I love the new version of the
Right.
of the Apple phone. I love looking at new apps. So I've got a kind of restless appetite for change in every other aspect of my life. Why would we expect guests to be any different on board our aircraft? This change is critical. I mean, you described it earlier, Shashank, as the most significant change in our 22 years, probably since our inception, starting with 200 people back in Calgary in 1996. We're changing our philosophy from low-cost point-to-point to the complexity of hub and network.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a change that's been rolling out over the last 2 years, but I think it'll be characterized and brought to life by the arrival of the 787. And I think that's what's going to make a lot of sense to people.
Right.
When you've got that level of complexity of three cabins of service, when you are flying daily transatlantic, you have to rethink how you service that aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
It's an additional 500,000 seats in year one across those three aircraft.
Wow.
That we didn't have this year. So it's a great way of focusing our attention and saying that's why
Wow.
we've been building a hub in Calgary and hubs in Toronto and Vancouver to support the extra level of complexity and wide body operation.
And you sure got to fill these up.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the aspects that we've had a no overbooking policy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a terrific thing in the North American market where overbooking is so standard amongst US carriers, but it gets more complex when you have multiple, particularly business class passengers booking, making multiple bookings on the same seat on different aircraft, and so no shows are much more standard in the international world. We've really got to determine how we manage that in this new world.
So, interesting questions, yeah. Very, very interesting dilemmas. Now, when WestJet started, Southwest was a clear model to follow and pretty much stuck to that model for a long time.
Yeah.
When you go to the network side, are there one or two airlines that you look up to that you feel, in 5 years' time, if I'm like this airline, I'd be in a good shape?
Yeah, that's it. And I'm going to get killed for this. As someone who's lived in New Zealand for the last 16 years, I really look up to Qantas.
Yeah.
I look to Alan Joyce, who I worked with in revenue management at Ansett Australia many years ago. Alan has done the most phenomenal job of building a high-quality premium airline operating Airbus 380s for Qantas while building the subsidiary of Jetstar. Mm-hmm. And Jetstar has been the most phenomenal role model, I guess, of an airline within an airline, now operating 787s themselves on medium haul routes. And if I look to the complexity of their model and how they rebuilt their model, and the amount of criticism that they took, from the media community, from the
unions, everyone was up in arms against them.
To the extent that Alan ended up grounding the airline back in 2011. And like me, he's not the tallest of guys. He's a nuggety Irishman, but he had the guts to stand up for the long-term vision that he believed in. Mm-hmm. And when everybody keeps telling you to run the business by the quarters, but yet they still want you to have a 5-year plan.
Right.
He, to me, and what he's been able to roll out across the Qantas group is a fantastic model for WestJet.
Yeah, no, certainly they've gone through tough times, and now the results are showing. So for example, would you say a WestJet and Delta partnership would look like what Qantas and Emirates is doing right now?
It could well do. I do believe that the future belongs to the deep bilateral joint ventures,
Mhm.
not the traditional alliances.
Well, I personally think traditional alliances are sort of very 2000s, and it is the age of deep partnerships indeed. Um, Talking about partnerships, an interesting model that's emerging is partnerships within the airline group. So let's say 5 years from now, where do you see Swoop and WestJet 737s and WestJet 787s? How do you see the three entities working together?
Yes, a Swoop, I think, is an essential uh, addition to the WestJet Group portfolio, and I think of it as a group, and we do think of a portfolio of companies. When we are trying to compete directly with either discount subsidiaries of mainline competitors, as we have in Rouge, or with new entrant discount carriers, and we've seen, one come into the market and one threaten to come into the market in recent times. I think it's dangerous to try to compete at a discounted fare level with a mainline brand
with the high
you've got
costs.
100 jets.
Yeah.
And you end up discounting directly or indirectly across the fleet. Swoop does that heavy lifting at the lowest end of the pricing market for us. And it also gives us beautiful segmentation. As WestJet's costs increase and as we start putting two double business class seats onto our mainline jets, we lose appeal for silver surfers. We lose appeal for young students. We sometimes lose appeal for larger groups wanting to travel to group destinations like Vegas. So Swoop can really pick up that corner of the market for us, operating into the big universities in Halifax and the Maritimes, operating routes like Edmonton, Vegas that really are large group and weekend leisure markets. That's not the flying that WestJet will be doing in 5 years' time. That is the sort of flying that's actually perfect for a leisure-based carrier like Swoop. So really, I see the next 5 years being about segmentation. We'll have a premium long-haul arm. We'll have if you like, a kind of mid to lower fare core business in WestJet that will be flying essentially the two triangles, a triangle in the west of Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, a triangle in the west, in the east of Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, and we'll be building connections to and from those two triangles.
So they'll be feeding the wide bodies.
Absolutely, and then feeding the wide bodies, and Swoop operating, completely independently, flying point to point.
Interesting. Do you foresee a risk where Swoop might be cannibalizing your own business at the lower end?
We watch that very carefully, very regularly. I don't see the risk because I do see increased separation between the two services, and most importantly between the guests that we're going to be carrying.
Right.
So it clearly is a risk, but that's a lower risk than sitting back
and losing the
nothing
market.
and letting new entrants come in and steal your lunch.
Right. That's very interesting. And you of course mentioned Air New Zealand, and that's the first time I think we became familiar with each other when you were launching the 787s for Air New Zealand back in the day. And here you are doing it once again in 63 days. Are there certain lessons you are taking from your time at Air New Zealand launching 787s and going long haul that you're applying to WestJet?
Yeah, there are three key lessons I took from that time at Air New Zealand. The three main reasons why I don't get invited to dinner parties because they're not very sexy or exciting. Structure, process, discipline. For me, it's about being very methodical. The luxury I was given by my then boss, Rob Fife at Air New Zealand, was the time to induct those new aircraft. So we took a lot of time, firstly, preparing for the 787, then when that got delayed, ensuring that preparation went into the 777-300 and building bespoke cabins, bespoke products on board those aircraft.
So was the 787 product installed on the 777 first?
Oh, yes, exactly. That's what happened.
Interesting.
So the 787 was due to be delivered in 2006, then got hugely delayed. So all of that fantastic, really sexy in-flight product got put onto the 777-300 because the 787 got pushed back behind that aircraft. So I learned a lot about resilience as well, beyond the three of structure, process, discipline, making sure that you had flexibility built into your plan, that you could adjust the plan. But, for a low-cost airline, or historically a low-cost airline like WestJet, we've done so well from being opportunistic
Mhm.
that it's quite hard sometimes to remember the discipline of being methodical, and that's the lesson for us. I'm looking now to standardize the 737 MAX fleet with the 2x2 premium economy
Right.
seat, so that forward experience is identical in every respect to the premium economy experience on the 787.
So the 787 Premium Economy and the Premium Class of 73 Max will be the same.
Will be identical.
Mm.
And obviously we'll have the lie flat bed
Yeah.
in the forward cabin on the 787, which people won't be expecting on the domestic aircraft. But we're trying to introduce standardization in a very methodical and structured way.
Yeah.
And I learned a long time ago, one of the most interesting guys I remember hearing from when I was at New Zealand was a Kiwi called Ray Webster, who used to run WestJet. And Ray always had this refrain that the discipline of a carrier is about saying no to 9 out of 10 opportunities. And at WestJet, we said yes to most things that have come along. And we're learning now about saying no and focusing on the 1 in 10 opportunities that are going to make the biggest difference for our guests.
Very interesting. And that I would tend to agree. One of the airlines that I talk about in my book is Singapore Airlines, and we know are really fanatical about consistency, both in service and in product. And it's only recently that they've decided to absorb Silk Air, the the regional arm, narrow body, and that's because they can put full flat business class seats, and that's because they wanted a consistency of experience between the long haul flight and the short haul flight. And now that that's possible, they will do it. So, and I think just given where the examples are coming from, I think this will pay off hopefully in the long term. This consistency is underrated.
I couldn't agree with you more. I sometimes use the parallel of I love stand-up comedy. So I love going to watch stand-up comics. The best stand-up comics are those people who look completely spontaneous because they're rehearsed to death.
Right.
So it's that rehearsed spontaneity. You were asking me earlier about the humanity and the humour that we bring into the cabin. I don't want it to be contrived, but I do want people to use good judgment in the cabins as to when that humour is appropriate. And that comes from practice, and it comes from experience. And that is the new WestJet. I think Singapore, Qantas are great role models in how consistently they delivered against their customer expectations.
Right. Have there been any failures that you have personally or professionally encountered which sort of sowed the seeds for future success?
In my time at WestJet, yeah, there've been a couple that I can think of. One last year, in November last year, we changed our schedules towards the hub direction. We also changed our logistics and catering provider, and we changed our catering supplier on the same day.
Oh,
that was a bad idea. It was poorly planned, even worse executed. Left flight attendants in the dark in terms of how they were able to respond to that change. And one thing I've learned from the times that our colleagues have been good enough to let me get involved in the service is the importance of the organisation of the galley. And if the galley is not in the right order, if the galley is not structured in a predictable way, then chaos ensues. And I never like leaving any of my colleagues on the back foot in terms of the way that they're going to explain that to the guests. And by changing 3 fundamentals of our service flow on the same day, we left them on the back foot.
Yeah, it's chaotic.
That was a failure. It was a failure, and that was a failure of discipline, and we were not methodical in that change. There have been others that sometimes have been the product of misunderstanding. Our market research team recently rolled out a suggestion to premium guests that they could use their mobile phone to film their experience in flight. And that's at a time when we're witnessing through social media more and more guests trying to film crew doing something or that they think is not the appropriate way to deliver service. So we send a really mixed message. On the one hand, we're saying we didn't like our guests using mobile phones to try and trap our staff, and the other, we're trying to encourage them to film their experiences. Bad idea. Yeah. And as soon as that came across my desk, and thankfully a very alert flight attendant wrote to me and said, "Why are you doing this?" We were able to pull it. But you talked earlier, Shank, about humility, and sometimes a failing of people in my position is lacking the ability to step back and say, "Do you know what? We stuffed up. That was not a smart idea, and we killed it." And I think it's one of the most important attributes you can have in leadership is the ability to put your hand up and say, "It happened on my watch. I might not have started it, but it's come across my my desk now, and I'm going to stop
The
it.
buck stops here.
It has to
Yeah.
stop, and you have to put your hand up and say, that wasn't my smartest move.
Are there any leaders who inspire you in the way you work and you lead the company?
Well, I talked about Alan Joyce.
Mhm.
Yeah, he'd definitely be one. Willie Walsh, I'm homing in on the Irish. So I hope you've got some good Irish who are appreciating the kudos I'm giving him. Willie Walsh, again, is a fearless
Yeah.
leader, a very brave individual in the way that Alan was very brave. I've got to try and redress the balance of my earlier comment about Qantas and tip my hat to Christopher Luxon.
Yeah.
Again, who's come in from outside the aviation world.
He actually went from Canada to New Zealand.
Came from Canada.
You guys switched places.
Yeah, we did switch places. He actually took my job at New Zealand. But Christopher has been a great leader for that airline. Again, has taken a fantastic heritage and translated that heritage into something bigger and better than I think most New Zealanders thought they could deliver. He's done an absolute tremendous
and they're doing some pretty innovative work around digital innovation and innovation labs and going really outside the airline business.
Their artificial intelligence and the work that they've done with Juliet has just been outstanding and truly innovative. I don't like the latest safety video. Sorry about that.
I think that's been.
But apart from that, the safety videos have been one of their great signatures. One of the great role models. And again, we talked about humility, but also humor is a critical aspect. I was very lucky once. I was at a function in Seattle, and I got into an elevator, as I've learned to call them instead of lifts, with Gordon Bethune, who was the former chief executive of Continental, who wrote one of the great books on aviation,
from Last to First, yeah,
wonderful read. And I just walked in, recognised him, and I said, Mr. Bethune, can I just let you know that your book was a great influence on one of the reasons why I built my career in aviation. Right. And he just looked at me very quietly and he said, I'm so sorry. So if you can have that kind of self-deprecating humour along with humility in the aviation industry, those are the guys who built great businesses.
Now we know who's responsible for this long journey. A burning question. We started with the 787s. We have to end with the Blue Santa.
Okay.
Christmas is coming.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any other airline in the world for whom people are so, anticipating, okay, what are they going to do this Christmas? What's the Blue Santa going to do this Christmas? I have two questions. One, why is the Santa blue? And second, can Santa go global with WestJet? He's well loved in Canada and the US, but will Santa actually go global?
Okay. So I'll answer the first one first. Why would Santa be red? That is not our color. Red is the color of competition. So, I think Blue Santa will take over the world. I think in years to come, people will look at Santa and say, why was he ever red? He should always have been blue. Secondly, he will go global in this year's Christmas Miracle. There will be a truly global theme. Christmas Miracle is so close to the heart of who we are as people. So the ability to take that unique Canadian service to other parts of the world that will remain nameless for now, but will all be revealed in the run-up to Christmas. I think we'll do that in a uniquely WestJet way, and it's going to be another really memorable, I guess, reminder to people of the service that we provide to the rest of the world.
Right. No, this is fantastic. The last part of this interview is called the rapid fire round.
Okay.
In which you have to answer the first thing that comes to your mind. And you cannot cheat.
Can't wait.
Okay? So we'll start simple.
Sure.
Your favorite movie?
Cool Hand Luke.
Which movie is that?
Paul Newman.
I'm going to check it out on Netflix and try and find it. Okay? Favorite book?
Ulysses by James Joyce.
Okay. Your favorite airline that's not WestJet or Air New Zealand?
Oh, come on, that's not fair.
No.
Wow. Maybe EasyJet.
EasyJet. Yeah. Okay. And that's a new one. I don't think I've heard that many times, but it does make sense. The one piece of advice you would give to other airline CEOs?
Standard you walk past is the standard you accept.
Very nice. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing all the new standards you set at WestJet, and thank you very much for spending the time.
It's a real pleasure.
All the best.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.